Catching systems, something that has become a huge part of Roblox's simulator games. You put some money in, open up an egg, and pray to RNG that you get something of good result. Well, today I've decided why not teach my audience how to make one, because after all, I know how to make one and I think it would be some pretty good content. So, let's get into it. Hey guys, I'm Exodia, and just like I talked about in our short intro for the video, I'm going to be showing you guys how you can recreate egg hatching systems from your favorite simulator games. When we're finished, the final product should look a little something like this. So yeah, let's get into it. So to get started with this tutorial, we're going to need to have a few models set up. First, you're going to need your egg or crate here that we're going to be buying. I have just a little nice UI that I made. We're going to be able to make auto opening as well as buying one or three. And then you're also going to need to have this little animation area I had. And so this red part here is going to represent where our crate or egg is going to be placed. And then our gray part here is going to be where our camera gets set to. These yellow squares I have on surface GUIs just mark the front of the part. So you want the front of the part to be facing where I have these yellow squares. So they're going to be facing each other. So to get started with this, most of the scripting is going to be done on the client. However, before we can even get into making the system itself, there is one thing we have to have established, that being our loot tables. So I made a module script and I put it in replicated storage so it can be activated by both the client and the server. And in here, I just have a simple table. So I called it loot tables because this is where all of our loot tables for our crates or eggs are going to be stored. And I just have one, so I have the name of the table here, which is going to be important later on. And then I have my three items that I want to be able to get. And so there's two values that's going to be important for the system I'm making. There's going to be the weight, which is important for calculating the item that we get as our output. And then we have the amount. I'm personally making a crate opening system for this tutorial, so I have a customizable amount of each reward that we can get. However, I will be adapting this for a pet system in the future, so if you're making a pet system, this amount value is irrelevant. So now let's look at the local script for our system. I wanted to try something a bit new for this tutorial and hopefully keep it for the future going forward. And that being, rather than typing it out line by line in the video and explaining it that way, I want to have the code already present there for you to just get ready to just copy and paste, into your game and use. And then I want to explain it line by line that way. I feel like when I type it out and explain, typing it can take quite a while and it draws out the video. So I don't want them to be like 20-minute videos all the time because I feel like that's not fun to watch for just a simple system like this. Anyways, with that aside, let's get into the actual programming. So we're going to look at this part first because there's a lot here. So let's look at it one part at a time. Now, this section of the code is going to handle the UI features. Now, we have three buttons here that we can press. A buy one button, a buy three button, or we can toggle our auto open for the crate. Now, how our system works is we have this folder in starter GUI called crate UI, and it's going to store all of the UIs for our crates. It's a billboard GUI stored in that folder with the adornee set to the crate it corresponds to. And so we're going to loop through the crate UI folder and loop through all of our billboard GUIs for however many crates or eggs that we're going to have. And then what we're going to do with that is we're going to get this info frame as a variable, as you can see here. And then we're going to loop through all the GUI objects in our info frame. And so afterwards, we want to check if it's a text button because we want to be checking, hey, are we clicking these buttons or not? And so the way we can differentiate whether we're clicking on an auto open or buy one or buy three button is quite simple. I have this count value inside of our single and triple box opening buttons. And so it's an int value, and it literally just tracks the number that will be open when we click that button. So when we click on the single button, here, it's only going to open one as seen by the value. When we click on our purchase triple button here for buy three, it's going to open up three as seen by our value. Then that's how we detect when we're purchasing a crate. To detect when we're toggling auto toggle off or not, we just do an else statement here because we don't have anything inside of our auto open toggle button. So if we're clicking on a button and it doesn't have that count value in it, then we know it's our auto toggle. So we could set it to true if it's not active, and then we can change our text button to make it so we know it's active. We will put an X in there, and then if it's already active, we'll disable it, and then set the text to blank so we know it's inactive. Now, when we're actually opening the crate, we're going to do a little check here off the bat to see if we actually have enough for the crate. Otherwise, we don't want to be able to buy it. And then we're going to check if our auto toggle is true, which if it is, we're going to run a while loop. And then we're going to run another check for our currency to make sure we have enough cash to buy our crate. Because otherwise, we're going to want to break out of the loop so that it's not running infinitely, and then we're getting currency, and we're just opening a box indefinitely, even though we don't have the money to open it. And so we're going to have a 1.5 second delay in that, so we have some time to disable the auto toggle. And then otherwise, if we're just opening regularly without it, we'll just open it like normal. Now, the two parameters we have passed is actually our count here, the number of boxes we're opening, as well as our info frame, because we're going to need some of the information from here. So let's move on to our loot generation as well as animation in our open crate function. So we start off by making this opened loot table, which is actually going to be useful when we generate the loot here. So we're going to get our purchase crate. This way we can get the price as well as the loot table, so we can use it here to both create our animation as well as add to our total on the server. So then we're just gonna do a for I start and increment loop. We're gonna start at 1 and then end on the number of crates we're opening and increment that by 1 every time. And then we're gonna generate some new loot and insert it into this table. So this is how we're keeping track of all the loot we opened with our crate. And then we're gonna, we're gonna fire the remote event we have here in our replicated storage and our events folder. We're gonna fire that to the server so we can, increment our currencies. So here's the animation code. This is all the code for just the technical stuff of, hey, I'm, getting my reward. Before we actually dig into how we're generating that, actually we could do that now. Let's look at how we generate the loot, then we'll look at the animation. So what we're doing here is we're looking at something called weighted RNG. Now to do so, that is why I had this weight value in here. Now normally you could just make your loot system out of 100. You could just generate a random number between 0 and 100 or 1 and 100. And then you can just compare, like, say your main item is like a 50 out of 100, and then you want to check with your generated number. You could do it that way. However, with weighted RNG, you're not really confined to that 100. You could have as high of a number as you want, and this will get you a percentage either way. Like our total weight here is 125, and so 75 out of 125 is 60%. As you can see, it still adds to a nice percentage, and we don't have to be stuck making it out of 100. So when we get down to like the really low stuff, it's like, oh, like really teeny numbers like 0.1. We don't have to worry about that here. And so we're getting this random loot by generating the total weight first of all. So we're gonna get all the weight of all of our items in the table, and we're gonna add them all up. That's how we get our total weight, just like I described. And then we're gonna get a random number, loop through our items just to get their weight, just to see what the weight is. And then we're going to check if that random number we generated is less than or equal to the weight. So like if I'm generating like a 36, for example, that's less than or equal to our gold's weight. So that's what we're going to get as our reward. And then we're going to return that item then. Otherwise, we are going to subtract that item's weight. Otherwise, we're going to subtract the item's weight from our random num. So this way, we can just narrow down the item that we're getting as our result. So it's a really nice system. It's guaranteed to give you some nice RNG for like loot crate opening and pet system opening. Now we can get on to our animation code. Don't bear with me. We're almost at the end. I know it's a lot to digest. That's why I wanted to break it down, here the best I can. So I hope it's easy to understand this way. So now let's do our simple animation. As you saw, I had a crate model inside of replicated storage. It's just the crate on our base here, just put into there that we could use. Cleared out all of the values and whatnot. So we're going to create a new crate by cloning that from replicated storage. Then I'm going to be setting the primary part of that crate to this red part, the C-frame of that red part, as you can see here. So you want to make sure that you have your egg or crate as a model, and you want to have the primary part set to something. Then we're going to set its parent to workspace so it pops up in there. And then right after that, we are setting our camera type to scriptable, so we can set the C-frame of our camera to our camera part here. This way, that's what controls our camera getting moved over to watch the animation play out. And then we are looping through a spin. We're playing a spin animation a few times just to give it some pizzazz. I decided to make a crate spinning. You can do whatever you want personally, whatever you see fit. Or if you like this better, if you like this fine, then just go with it. How we do this is we have tween service as one of our services we get. And then we're using the primary part of our crate. We have some crate info already established up here. So I use 0.375 seconds for the time it takes to spin. And then I use linear and out for my easing style and direction. And then what we're going to do for our C-frame is we're going to do new crate colon get pivot. And then we're going to multiply it by cframe.angles 0 math.pi 0. And that will rotate it 360 degrees on the y-axis. Then we're going to play our animation here, and have just a little bit of a delay between playing. And then after our animation is finished spinning, we're going to create a new explosion here. I thought I would just give it a nice little pizzazz. So I set the position, just to be safe, I'm setting the position to the primary part of our crate. And then we want to make sure that this explosion is not going to do any damage to anything around it. So we're going to set our explosion type of the explosion to enum.explosionType.no craters. I also set the blast pressure to 0 just to be safe as well. And then we just want to make sure our explosion is visible. And then, so the explosion does not get deleted when our crate gets destroyed, and we have a very short explosion that just abruptly ends, I'm going to set the parent of the explosion to this part. And then now we're going to loop through our frames. So those frames you saw when it was displaying the items I got, we have a separate UI for that. That is our rewards frames. So here I just have like a single one, and we have our background, which was the spinning particle, the spinning sparkle. And then we have that for the single, and then on the triple we have 3 of them as well. And then we are setting them to be visible. And then we are actually looping through our open loop. And then for our first item, for the triple, for example, we are setting the first item in our open loop table. We're setting the image for that to this decal folder. Like we have this decal table as well. So if our first item is iron, we want to set our decal to iron. So I have decals stored here. As you saw, they're just Minecraft sprites. I didn't have time to make anything special. I'm not really great at that. So I thought that would do. So we're just doing through this loop, we're setting the image of each of our rewards to the reward we actually got from our decal table. And then afterwards, we are giving a nice little weight of 3 so we can see the reward that we got. And then we are setting the frames to no longer be visible, and then we are setting our camera type back to custom. So that, I know that was a lot to go through. I don't mean that to be not mind-numbing, but that is all of our code on the client. The server has much less in comparison. As I said, most of this is done on the client for reasons of lacking in bugs. If we do it on the server, then the crates can overlap and it'll look a bit messy. So yeah, let's move on to our server code. So the final bit of code we have to look at is our server-side code. Now it's really straightforward. We just have our event and we're firing it. When it's received on the server, we are checking to see if we have enough to actually buy the crates we're purchasing. And also, I forgot to mention this in the client-sided section of the video. But because we're using string values for our resources and our crate price, we're going to want to convert them to numbers. That way we can multiply the crate price by the number of boxes. And then we have our cache value set to a number so that there is no errors returned when we're comparing these two values. Once we do that, then we're just, subtracting the crate price multiplied by the number of boxes. We're subtracting that from our cache, so it's getting reduced, so we're not, able to infinitely open boxes. And then we're looping through our loot open table from our client. And then we're just adding the rewards to our player here, which is pretty straightforward using our loot service. So yeah, that's really it for the code. And that's really it for the video. So thank you for watching. Thank you for making it this far. If you have, then don't forget to like and subscribe. I know I haven't been posting much recently, in a long while, but I'm gonna try to get back on top of it. I have college starting up soon, so it's kind of a challenge, but I think I can make it work. Anyways, in the future, I plan to adapt it more to a pet system, egg hatching based thing where we can save the pets that we get in the future. So yeah, that's it for the tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.